Are you trying to decide whether or not an EV should be your next car? Well, let's break the ice. Get it? ICE, internal combustion engine. Let's get it. Welcome back to the Cobra Pit, whether you're a longtime viewer or a newer subscriber like Luis Camacho. I see you. I appreciate every single one of you. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. Now, this is the video to show your friends and family members who are a little hesitant whether or not they should get an electric vehicle. Yes, I have Teslas, but I also had a Chevy Bolt for 3 years. And this is not necessarily Tesla versus gas vehicles, but EVs in general. Now, there may be some Tesla specific references, but overall there are some misconceptions around electric vehicles that I want to address and, possibly help you decide if an EV is right for you. Number one is price. This is always the first thing people bring up when it comes to buying an electric vehicle. So what's the most amount of money that you want to spend on a car? If you're really trying to stay below $25,000, then your options are limited. You can find good to great entry-level electric vehicles between $25,000 to $35,000. There's the Nissan Leaf, Hyundai Kona Electric, Mini Cooper SE, and more. Of course, there are range, size, and other differences in this price category, but your choice is individualized. Also, when it comes to the price, you have to factor in the gas savings. Yes, electricity does cost, but it's way less than gas. So think about that moving forward. There's also savings in maintenance, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And most EVs qualify for the government $7,500 tax credit. Most EVs. The second thing people bring up is the range. People always talk about being stranded, worried about running out of battery somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, right? So range can be a factor. Figure out your daily commute from work and back, and also leave some room for any extracurricular activities you might do after work, whether it's shopping, sports, gym, things like that, taking the kids places. Then figure out how many miles you actually need. Then you go from there. At the end of the day, you come home and charge your car and it's ready to go for the next day. Do you really need 250? Do you really need 300 miles? Figure that out. Remember, each person's mileage may vary. Another pun. Now, the only time this can be an issue is when you go on longer trips, but we'll talk about trips a little bit later. Being able to charge at home every night is my number 3 reason. It's just the convenience of it. Imagine not having to plan your day or your trip around stopping at the gas station. Now, I know a fill-up can be 5 minutes, but can somebody explain to me why the lines at Costco are so long? I just don't get it. Why would you go to Costco and wait in that long line where you can just stop at Chevron or Arco? I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with the membership savings. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But I remember way back when I had an ICE vehicle, and I would say things like, should I get gas now or get it in the morning? And it's not a big deal, but it is in the back of your mind. Like, all right, you know what? I have to leave enough time in the morning to get gas, or it's late, I'm tired, things like that. Versus just coming home, putting it on the charger as soon as you get into the garage. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Also, the convenience of not taking the car to get oil changes and services. I remember I used to wake up early after getting my own full synthetic oil, being the first one at Toyota and Nissan, so I had to wait all day to get my oil changed, and it was a hassle. Not the worst thing in the world, but I still had to think about it, right? It was still something I had to do. I used to worry a little bit about, I hope they're actually using my oil and not, not saving to give me some cheap stuff, but I don't know, I guess that's trust things. But still, the convenience of knowing you don't have to deal with that, right? You're not worried about that at all. And yeah, of course, no small checks. Now, number 4 is all about road trips. Now, yes, this is a little different because, yes, getting to your destination a little faster is valid. You may want to do that. But there's also something to be said about taking your time on these trips. Now, how fast you get somewhere has many variables. If you're in a gas-powered vehicle, you may stop, use a restroom, grab some snacks out of the gas station, and keep going, right? You may or may not. But in an electric vehicle, you have to stop at a charging station. It may be 25 to 45 minutes per charge, get back on the road. So there is a difference there. It took me an hour longer to get from Southern California to Reno, Nevada. Now that's about a 7.5 hour trip in my ICE vehicle. But we did take a little bit longer, but there's a little more to the story. So along the way, in a Tesla, here we go with those references. In a Tesla, it gives you the route, it tells you where to stop, it tells you how long to stay at that charging destination. We did stay a little longer at some of the destinations because we got out. Yes, we used the restrooms, and most of the chargers are near, eateries, places, not just gas stations. But we stopped in Bishop and we walked around a little bit. We explored a little more. So the charging may have said 25, 30 minutes, but we stayed a little bit longer just to kind of enjoy the ride, enjoy the trip a little bit. Now, stopping and smell the roses is not something you want to do all the time, but this is a beautiful country. Again, this is preference, right? There's nothing wrong with getting to your destination as fast as you can if that's your style. And that used to be my style, but the more I've taken my time and enjoyed the trip, I have the kids, they always need to use the restroom. They always want to eat snacks and just stretch your legs a little bit. It's been a pretty pleasant experience. And another Tesla thing, autopilot does make it a lot more enjoyable as well. It's living a good life. Now, if you constantly take long trips, then maybe an EV is not best suited for you, but there are some that have more range, like our Model X SUV has 350 miles of range, and that's what we took to Reno. The lower priced options may have 115 miles, 200 miles that you might not want to, get if you're taking long trips. Maybe for those long trips, you might want to rent a car if you have something like that, but that's just something to think about. But with our SUV, we've actually traveled a lot more. We went to Phoenix, Vegas a few times, San Diego, and to Reno. So I enjoyed the drive. So again, your mileage may vary. But number 4 to me is a big one. No maintenance. Well, very limited. If you're a tinkerer and you love to work on cars, then you probably don't want an EV. If you really don't want to think about services and changing the brakes and all the components and moving parts of your car, breaking it down, then an EV is for you. The average EV has about 20 moving parts in its drivetrain, while a traditional car has over 2,000. And that's a lot of things that can malfunction. Here are the top 10 car repairs in 2015 and their costs. My Nissan Armada with its failing cracked radiator, along with other things, needed its 2 catalytic converters replaced. And that's when I drew the line and said, it's time to move on. That's enough. I'm not fixing this car anymore. Now, EVs still have parts that may need replacing, but nowhere as much as ICE vehicles. The battery is a big one people talk about, but it doesn't fail as fast as one would think. And if you're buying new, it should be covered under warranty. But if you're not covered, prices can vary, just like ICE vehicle engines can if you have to replace that. But EV battery prices are lowering. Right now, they're an average of $161 per kilowatt hour, but they're projected to drop around 56 by 2030. So that's a big difference. So by the time you're out of warranty, prices should be a lot lower. But that's also something that can potentially go wrong with your car. So don't just guarantee it. Batteries are pretty reliable. And don't forget about those brakes. Now, my Chevy Bolt, remember I had it for 3 years. By the time I returned it, it was a lease. The brakes, the pads look brand new still. And that's due in part to the regenerative braking, or one pedal driving you may have heard. Now, when you take your foot off the accelerator, the car slows down, kind of like a golf cart if you've been in one of those. Now, it will slow down, it'll come to a complete stop without actually using the brakes. The only time I really use the brakes is if I have to stop abruptly, a last minute change, I need to make a maneuver or something like that. But for the most part, I use one pedal driving, and you get used to it pretty quickly. Actually, it's kind of fun if you try to, time it just right to get it perfect every time. You know how far the stoplight is, and you take your foot off at the right time. So it's kind of a mini game there, but your brakes will last a whole lot longer. And of course, no more oil changes. I keep talking about that because I don't know, I hated oil changes. And in closing, of course, buying a car is a personal preference. Once I got the Chevy Bolt, and the reason I got the Chevy Bolt was to try it out to see how life would be with an electric vehicle. Was it for me? Could I handle it? And yeah, it just opened up a whole new world to me. There was no going back. Now think about if it was flip-flopped. Imagine we started with electric vehicles and you had all those conveniences and things we talked about, then all of a sudden here comes an internal combustion engine car. And they're saying, hey, this is the new wave. You can fill up in 5 minutes. You just go to a gas station, you put this fluid into your car. Yeah, the fluid's not very efficient. You maybe get 60 to 70% of that energy from that gas, but you know what? You can fill up really quickly. You have to bring in and get oil changes, and there's more wear and tear and all these parts in here, but you know what? It can be strong, it can fill up faster. I mean, I don't know, what are the benefits? It's hard to see it now. I might be a little biased. But all I'm saying is it's hard to go from one extreme to the other. And I think if you try out an electric vehicle, you might be like me and say that there's no going back. But the beautiful thing about this world is there's something for everyone out there. Decide what works for you. You may not live in a place where you have access to a charger. That's valid. Or whatever your reason may be. But when I say is try it, you might like it. And you really might love it. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget, Cobra told ya. All right, y'all.